Some more big names headed to the SEC in the transfer portal, plus Ty Simpson goes pro. LSU still searching for a QB, and Ole Miss will look to punch their ticket to the title game tonight. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. And we will get into the news of Ole Miss getting ready for Miami. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, but we do have to get you caught up on the transfer portal. And we have had some big movement here in the last 24 hours. It's a constant cycle. There's some big movement happening. Let's jump into it. Alabama four-star O-lineman Olaus Alinen is heading to Kentucky. He is a native of Finland, spent the past 2 seasons rotating in as a reserve O-lineman there at Alabama. He's got 165 snaps in his career and looks like he will slide right in on that Kentucky offensive line for new head coach Will Stein. USC, that's Southern Cal, four-star D lineman Devan Thompkins. He is heading to Alabama. He was the number 3 D lineman in the portal. Redshirted, finished his redshirt junior season this past year, 31 tackles, 6.5 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks, 2 passes broken up, and a forced fumble in 12 games played. So a very productive D lineman there for Kalen DeBoer and Alabama. Also going to Alabama, offensive lineman Caden Strayhorn from Michigan. How about Texas A&M? They add a 4-star edge from Northwestern in Anto Saka, 3-year player at Northwestern, had 12 sacks in his career so far. Also, Alabama 4-star offensive tackle Wilkin Formby. He is heading to Texas A&M, brings 16 career starts with him, will be a big piece of the Aggie O-line next year. They also picked up LSU offensive lineman Tyree Adams. I'll tell you right now, Texas A&M, they are loading up in the trenches so far via the portal. On the O-line, you got Formby, Adams. They also brought in Cohen Eccles from LSU and Trevon Baugh from South Carolina. So that's 4 O-linemen already. And then on the D-line, they bring in Saka, they bring in Ryan Henderson from San Diego State, and Brandon Davis-Swain from Colorado. So I think they're going with numbers like, let's see if 1 or 2 of these guys hits, right? I mean, I don't know if they expect them all to be big-time playmakers, but it's kind of how the portal works, right? Like, you're not going to hit on all the guys, but if you find a few diamonds in the rough and if you turn out to be studs, I mean, keep in mind, 2 years ago, they went up to Bowling Green and got Cassius Howell. He was pretty good year 1, but he was kind of stuck behind some other guys fighting for playing time. Last year, he gets his chance to showcase himself as a full-time starter, and he wins SEC Defensive Player of the Year. So, Mike Elko taking that approach. He understands games are won in the trenches. They lost in the trenches in the home playoff game to Miami. So we'll certainly see what happens there at Texas A&M. More guys, portal movement. How about Auburn? They go and get Chaz Nimrod to Auburn, the wide receiver from USF. So Auburn now has USF starting quarterback and Byron Brown. Their 2 leading rushers from last year, which was Byron Brown and then the running back Nakai Davenport. And now they have 3 of the top 5 pass catchers last year: Jeremiah Coger, Chaz Nimrod, and Christian Neptune. So Alex Golesh going all in with his former USF crew there at Auburn. Also, they picked up an offensive lineman yesterday, Michigan State tackle Stanton Ramil. So they finally went outside of the USF pipeline and adding to the offensive line. How about, didn't put it on here, but Auburn picking up cornerback Kayan Lee from, Tennessee picking up Auburn cornerback Kayan Lee. Appeared in 36 games for Auburn, making 25 starts, 4 pass breakups, 1 interception this past season. Kayan Lee, very experienced, going to Tennessee after what? They had all the injuries all year to their secondary, so good pick up there for the Vols. How about Arkansas? I kind of like what they're doing. A little bit sneaky here. They get UNC 4-star linebacker Kamari House. They get Auburn edge Jamonte Waller, Clemson corner Shelton Lewis, Kentucky linebacker Steven Souls. Arkansas making some interesting additions. The one I like most is the Memphis running back Sutton Smith. I think he's going to be very productive there for Arkansas next year. Lane Kiffin, the self-proclaimed portal king, LSU, picking up some interesting pieces yesterday. Florida 4-star wide receiver Eugene Wilson, goes by Trey Wilson. 3 years at Florida, of course, battled injuries, but who could forget his freshman year where he put up over 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. So they'll hope to find some of that Trey Wilson. They had also picked up Jace Brown, very productive wide receiver from Kansas State. And then they went and got Hayden Craig, punter from Florida, so adding to the special teams. Speaking of Florida, they add Micah Mays, a wide receiver from Wake Forest, played in 10 games this past year, 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also get Cam Dooley, safety from Kentucky, this past season at 30 tackles, a tackle for a loss, an interception, a fumble return, and a forced fumble. So Cam Dooley heading to Florida. How about Mizzou doing a little bit of work? They got Auburn wide receiver Horatio Fields, played in just 4 games at Auburn. Of course, broke his foot at practice and his season got cut short, but spent the 2 previous seasons at Wake Forest. And if you remember in 2024, he had almost 500 yards with 4 touchdowns. So Horatio Fields added to that wide receiver room at Mizzou. They also got Auburn safety Kensley Louador Faustin, I think is how you say it, an interception against Arkansas this year, had a sack against Kentucky. This one is a sneaky one to watch. They go to Houston Christian and get a running back named Zayshawn Edwards. He was 1,000-yard rusher last year at Houston Christian in the FCS level. Watch that kid because Eli Drinkwitz, he is great at finding these running backs who are diamonds in the rough. They also added Mississippi State O-lineman Luke Work. And then Mississippi State, they added a couple of safeties, Florida's Jamrock Grimsley and Rice safety Marcus Williams. So those are the latest transfer portal moves in the last 24 hours. We also had a few big names entering the portal, and no bigger than Georgia safety Jonel Aguero, played in 36 games over 3 seasons for Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs, was a starter in 12 of 13 games this year, logging 39 tackles, 22 solo, had a career-high 7 tackles in the game against Tennessee, also had an interception in that game. So we'll see where Jonel Aguero, I saw Ole Miss showing some interest. So Pete Golding not messing around there over in Oxford. He's trying to add some big-time playmakers. Kentucky with a couple of notable names into the portal. Running back Jamarian Wilcox, wide receiver Hardley Gilmore, and wide receiver Cameron Miller. Oklahoma wide receiver Zion Reagans. Texas 4-star tight end Jordan Washington, and Vandy corner Trudell Berry. So those are all guys that have entered the portal. We don't know where they're going just yet. And then a handful of guys leaving the SEC yesterday, headlined by Auburn quarterback Jackson Arnold, officially going to play for Dan Mullen at UNLV. LSU starting quarterback back stretch of the season, Michael Van Buren, he chose USF. So Byron Brown's going from USF over to Auburn. Michael Van Buren going to go from LSU over to USF. It's just quarterback musical chairs here. Mississippi State backup quarterback Luke Cromanhook, he also will be going to USF. So I guess he's going to go battle Michael Van Buren. Florida wide receiver Aiden Mizell, very productive at Florida. He's going to UCLA. Missouri wide receiver Josh Manning, he's going to Kansas State. Mizzou safety Marvin Burks going to Wisconsin. How about Tennessee backup running back Peyton Lewis? He's going to Virginia, so he's jumping into the ACC. Kentucky wide receiver Preston Bowen going to Ohio. Oklahoma tight end Caden Helms to Minnesota. Auburn corner Donovan Starr going to Clemson. And then Arkansas backup quarterback Grayson Wilson to Boston College. How about some guys making some visits? I saw that Jordan Ross, the big stud D lineman from Tennessee, was visiting LSU, as was Alabama linebacker Quay Russaw. So keep an eye on that one. I know a lot of people want to try to get Russaw on campus. And then Cam Coleman, he was on campus at Texas Tech yesterday, making his official visit over there. So all eyes on Cam Coleman on where he is going to end up. A few names staying put. Texas safety Derek Williams put his name in the portal, took it out. How about the biggest one that came out yesterday? Jayden Woods, Florida edge Jayden Woods, withdrawing his name from the transfer portal. He will return to play for the Gators and John Summerall in 2026. He entered the portal about a week ago, but became convinced a return to Florida was in his best long-term interest after meetings with defense coordinator Brad White and new head coach John Summerall. Now, Woods was considered one of the top 10 players in this transfer portal, so that is a huge get back for John Summerall and the Florida Gators. He was named to the SEC's all-freshman team, and his return to Florida, that means retaining 5 of Florida's most productive players when you consider star linebacker Miles Graham, stud freshman receiver Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown. And then, of course, all SEC running back Jaden Baugh. Now you add in Jayden Woods. These are all big-time keeps for John Summerall and the Florida Gators. So there you have it. Just kind of looking at the best available names still in the portal. Again, as of this recording, I say that because you might be listening or watching this, and some of these names have moved. But Sam Leavitt still sitting up there at the top. We'll talk a little bit more on him coming up in the next segment. Cam Coleman sitting at there, number 4. Chaz Coleman, the Penn State defensive edge, he's still in there. Damon Williams, we'll talk on him next segment, but the Washington quarterback, he's in there. Damon Wilson, former Georgia 5-star who went to Mizzou last year, had a productive season. He's in the portal. Where's he going to end up? James Smith, the D lineman from Alabama, he's considered the 8th best available prospect. And then Mandrell Desir, an edge from Florida State. So those are your top 10. Just outside the top 10, you got DeAndre Moore, wide receiver from Texas. DJ Lagway, of course, quarterback from Florida. Dylan Raiola, quarterback from Nebraska. And then Deuce Knight, quarterback from Auburn. So a lot of talent still out there to be decided where they are going to go. All right, when we return here on Locked On SEC, we'll get to LSU and their quarterback debacle and Ty Simpson making a big announcement yesterday at Alabama. We'll touch on that when we return here on Locked On SEC. Hey, let's be real, guys. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming between subscriptions you forget about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month. It is easy to feel like you're losing control. Who has time to track every transaction and hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in. It's a personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. You're going to be shocked when Rocket Money shows you what you're paying for. Those subscriptions you completely forget about. It's already going to be saved money for you once they get started. The automatic transaction categorization is a game changer. You can finally see exactly where your money is going each month. You can set budgets and goals, get personalized insights, and receive real-time alerts for large transactions, upcoming bills, and low balances. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join them at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now you can take it up a level. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On SEC with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 for the year. Go to lockedonsec.supercast.com or check the link in our show notes to learn more. All right, a couple of more big draft announcements happening yesterday. Shout out to our guy, Brennan Thompson, Mississippi State wide receiver. He officially declared for the draft. We had him on at SEC Media Days, of course, made that big catch late in the Arizona State game to win that one. So best of luck to Brennan Thompson. But the other big one that came out yesterday, how about Ty Simpson announcing that he is going pro? Alabama starting quarterback this past season, declared for the 2026 NFL draft on Wednesday. He shared a video mentioning Nick Saban, said he gave the Crimson Tide his all, and said his time at Alabama was, quote, all worth it. Simpson's father also told ESPN he expects to be a first-round pick in April. Jason Simpson saying nobody said second round, adding that they received all first-round grades from all the NFL GMs that they spoke to. Look, the reality is this is not a great quarterback crop in the draft. There's a lot of guys that people thought might come out, like an Arch Manning, that decided to come back for next year. So what's going to happen is you're going to have a loaded 2027 NFL draft. But the 2026 draft, I mean, Fernando Mendoza is projected to, by all accounts, to be the #1 pick. And then Dante Moore from Oregon, who has yet to declare, is kind of thought to be the second best quarterback. But outside of that, a lot of the mock drafts, that's the only 2 quarterbacks in the first round. And so, you start to get to that middle and back end of the first round. If somebody needs a quarterback, I think they're going to fall in love with Ty Simpson. Again, the back half of his performance of the schedule, not as great as the first half. But look, I think he's going to go to the combine, his pro day. He's going to wow with a lot of the throws he can make. I mean, he threw some dimes this year at Alabama. So I think their offensive line was to blame for a good bit of, the struggles this season, the sacks and forcing pressure. But they complete nearly 65% of his passes, over 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, 5 interceptions also rushed for 2 as well. So we'll see where Ty Simpson goes. But why does this matter in the grand scheme of things? Well, the first order of business is who's going to be Bama's QB1 in 2026. You start with Austin Mack. Mack spent 3 seasons under DeBoer and 2 seasons under Ryan Grubb. He was not officially listed as the Tide's primary backup quarterback on the official depth chart, but he was the first quarterback off the sideline behind Ty Simpson during this season. And of course, he got in there, played some meaningful minutes in the Rose Bowl, went 11 of 16 for 103 yards, showed he could be an effective runner as well. So Austin Mack has a possibility. But the other one is Keelon Russell, former 5-star recruit. He's a signal caller that a lot of Alabama fans are super excited about, one of their highest recruits they've ever gotten. And he's flashed that skill set that a lot of folks, really are intrigued by. True freshman, only saw playing time in 2 games this season, was 11 of 15 for 143 yards passing and 2 passing touchdowns. But certainly going to be the story of the spring, right? And into next season is who's going to be Alabama's starting quarterback, Keelon Russell versus Austin Mack. But at least now we know it will not be Ty Simpson. And then this also closes the book for Tennessee. Tennessee was, there was some talk out there that they were interested in Ty Simpson if he decided to come back to school, and Alabama went, well, no room at the inn here. You might want to go seek elsewhere. So best of luck to Ty Simpson. We interviewed him at the Manning Passing Academy earlier this year, and great young man. We wish him the best of luck. Do have an Alabama coaching staff note here. Kalen DeBoer adding to his staff, announcing the hire of former Auburn assistant Derek Nix. So Derek Nix, statement saying, Derek Nix adding extensive SEC experience to our group, both in coaching and on the recruiting side. This is from Kalen DeBoer. He's very familiar with our current coaches. He's also an Alabama native who understands the state. I'm excited to add Derek to our staff. Now, Nix, like we said, a native of Alabama, has coached in the SEC for a long time. He was an assistant at Ole Miss. The list goes on and on, but now he's in Tuscaloosa, and you're going to see what he can do with that wide receiver room, like Ryan Williams. And, do they get Cam Coleman? Of course, Derek Nix was part of some of those talks with Cam Coleman. So I don't know. We'll see. But an interesting addition there for Alabama. One quick note here. I saw Nick Saban was asked about Kalen DeBoer on the Pat McAfee show this week. And Saban said Alabama needs to get pointed, quote, in the right direction. He said, I do think that Kalen DeBoer is a really good coach and doing a good job. This is a tough transition, especially in this environment that we live in college football in terms of players coming and going. I think there were like 26 players that got into the portal when I retired. It's a lot to overcome by anybody. It would have been a lot to overcome even for one of the guys that formerly coached for me. So Saban did go on to say he fully supports Greg Byrne. He said, I'm hoping they get the ship right in the right direction here. It's not bad to get in the playoffs and finish in the final 8, but not the expectation around here, which is tough to live up to sometimes. Of course, Kalen DeBoer, 20-8 in his first 2 seasons. Saban went 19-8 in his first 2 seasons. So, of course, he had a lot more to rebuild than Kalen DeBoer did. One other note here, I do want to touch on the LSU quarterback situation. Demond Williams, the Washington star quarterback, announced Tuesday night he was entering the portal with a do not contact tag. CBS Sports reporting that LSU is the team to watch for Demond Williams. Of course, Lane Kiffin was maybe hoping to get Trinidad Chambliss to transfer over with him. That doesn't look like that's going to happen. And there were some ties here. Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. recruited Williams both out of high school and then again when he was considering transferring a couple of years ago. And it looks like Washington is going to try to hold Williams to the fire on his NIL agreement that he signed just a handful of days ago. So that is going to be something worth watching. And look, they may call their bluff. Demond Williams might just say, you know what, I don't even need to go to LSU on scholarship. I'll get an NIL deal or revenue share deal, whatever. I'll just go enroll as a student. And again, Washington sounds like they're going to fight him on this. But then if you're Washington, do you really want to be the school that's trying to sue kids over breaking an NIL agreement? If, of course, a situation where if he's getting $3 or $4 million from Washington and LSU's offering $5 to $6 million, it's a better opportunity, right? You would think a judge would say, well, kid's getting a better deal elsewhere. Are you going to stand in the way of them? So I don't know. That's going to be a fascinating one to follow. The other one is Sam Leavitt. He finished his visit to LSU on Tuesday, and he was on his way to Knoxville as of Wednesday, expected to be a multi-day visit with Tennessee. and the Vols are putting a full court press on them. Leavitt led the Sun Devils to the Big 12 title and the quarterfinals of the college football playoff last year. And Joey Aguilar is still waiting on the outcome of his litigation he's involved with to obtain an additional year of eligibility. So, look, if Tennessee misses out on Sam Leavitt and Joey Aguilar doesn't get the extra year of eligibility, it's going to be George McIntyre, who they like, and then incoming true freshman Faison Brandon, who's one of the best quarterbacks in this recruiting class, but a lot of inexperience there. Josh Heupel tends to lean a little bit more on liking guys with experience. So, again, a lot of quarterback positions to watch. LSU, Alabama, Tennessee, all going to be new faces, it would seem like, next year. Again, we'll see on Aguilar at Tennessee. All right, when we return here on Locked On SEC, still more to come. We'll get into, there's a playoff game tonight. We'll talk about that next, right here on Locked On SEC. Ole Miss versus Miami tonight in the Fiesta Bowl, the college football playoff semifinal happening tonight, and a little bit different on the coaching staff for Ole Miss tonight. Pete Golding speaking with the media on Wednesday, saying that wide receivers coach George McDonald and tight ends coach Joe Cox will not be with the team for the college football playoff semifinal. He said, quote, "There's been constant communication. They have another job that is paying them, and they have a responsibility. And at this time, the way the calendar is now, they have 35 guys that are in the portal, and they have to build a team." He said, do they want to be here? You're damn right they do. But, again, you also kind of look at it and say, well, those guys work for LSU now, and they're trying to build a staff. But Golding was asked directly about his staff. He mentioned that several assistants, including offense coordinator Charlie Weiss Jr., are still with the team, will be coaching Thursday night. He then used the question as an opportunity to rail against the college football calendar. He was clearly frustrated with the situation, but he did express confidence in the Rebels' current staff. He said, we've got plenty of people here. So the big question heading into tonight's showdown is an obvious one. Can Trinidad Chambliss handle the pass rush, that surge from that Miami defense, how good they are defensively up front? I saw Conor O'Gara wrote an interesting piece on this. He pointed this out. I didn't realize this. Marcel Reed and Julian Sayin in the first two playoff games against Miami were sacked a combined 12 times by this Miami defensive front. Marcel Reed in the first game at A&M, 7 sacks. He was sacked 7 times. And then this past week on New Year's, the game against Ohio State, Julian Sayin was sacked 5 times. Trinidad Chambliss has been sacked 1 time total in his last 3 games. That was against Tulane. He was sacked 0 times in the game against Georgia last week in the quarterfinals. So the Ole Miss Rebels, 2 wins away from a national championship, would be their first since 1962. To me, it all comes down to that Miami defensive front. How good can Ole Miss's offensive line hold it off? Can they give Trinidad Chambliss time? And then this Keelon Lacey run as well as he has in these first couple of games, and take that pressure off of Chambliss, whether or not in obvious passing downs throughout the game. So going to be really interesting to see. On the flip side, I'm a little worried about Ole Miss's defense. What they give up, 34 to Georgia. That's Pete Golding's calling card. Miami's offense, it starts with the run game. They've been very good at running the football so far in these playoff games. Interesting part is Carson Beck has not had to do a ton with the passing game with his arm. We know how fast Malachi Toney is. Again, this might be a game where they call on Carson Beck to throw, and unless Carson Beck makes that big mistake, throws a bad interception, I get the vibe, I get the feeling like the Ole Miss story has been a Cinderella story. And last week at the Sugar Bowl, I was there. There were so many Ole Miss fans. It was so emotional. I almost wonder if it's like you win that one, and you take a deep breath and go, we've achieved greatness, something we haven't done in forever. And then you almost get not complacent, but you just feel like, man, we put our all into that game. Are you willing to put your all again into this game? Yeah, not saying they won't, but just saying, if I'm making a prediction on this one, I think Miami gets it done. I think the Miami defense does enough to slow down Chambliss and Ole Miss. Look, if I'm wrong, I'll leave my words. I mean, Ole Miss has been a fantastic story throughout the last handful of weeks and the whole season, and losing a head coach when it matters most. It's been phenomenal. So we're going to take Miami in the prediction. But again, look, for the sake of Locked On SEC and the stupid Big Ten people in our comments, like, we want the SEC to try to win a national championship, right? It would be nice for them to get back on top. But Big Ten people saying in my comments, like, oh yeah, SEC, another year you didn't win. I'm like, I'm sorry, Ole Miss is still playing. We'll see if they pull this thing out. One more note here on Pete Golding. If you missed this yesterday, he was basically sent a message to Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss doubters. He said, I don't have a message for anybody. I think our team had a message. They had a message about how they prepared and how they play and what they weren't tired of, that they weren't tired of playing. I do think the message is, I'm replaceable, you're replaceable, our players are replaceable. I think you want to build a program to where it's headed in the right direction. One person, one player, anything like that, that's not going to derail that. There's been too much invested in that, and it's been aligned correctly, and that one person is not going to impact something so drastically. So, again, Ole Miss sitting still at about a 3.5-point underdog, according to FanDuel, against the Miami Hurricanes. So take your pick on where you want to go tonight. Like I said, I think a lot of the country will be rooting for the underdog, Ole Miss Rebels. Of course, if Miami wins, the storyline of this one is the national championship game is in Miami at Hard Rock Stadium. So whether they're playing Oregon or Indiana, potentially, Miami will have the home crowd behind them, you have to think. But look, whether it's Indiana versus Ole Miss, Oregon versus Ole Miss, and plenty of storylines to go around depending on the matchup that we get. But for the SEC's sake, let's hope the SEC can find their way in there. Although I think Mississippi State fans would never root for Ole Miss. LSU fans are definitely not rooting for Ole Miss. So I don't know. The rest of the conference, you care if Ole Miss wins a championship. Again, conference pride, not what it used to be back in the day. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On SEC. Make sure you subscribe and follow so you get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On SEC ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Check it out in our show notes.